It started like any other sunny afternoon in a quiet suburban neighborhood, kids playing, dogs running around, and neighbors minding their own business. But things took a sharp turn when one resident, known by many as the HOA Karen, decided to stir up trouble over something that should have never been a problem in the first place: a child's therapy dog. What happened next shocked the whole community. This wasn't just a case of a nosy neighbor complaining about barking or mess. No, this woman went as far as digging through the child's yard, snatching up the dog's toys, and throwing them straight into the trash. And here's the twist: those toys weren't just any toys. They were part of the child's therapy, used daily to help him cope with anxiety and sensory challenges. What she did hit deep, but she didn't stop there. Neighbors began to take notice, and what started as quiet whispers soon turned into a community-wide outcry. The neighborhood had seen enough, and when the truth came out, the consequences were more than anyone expected, including police getting involved and a surprising turn that no one saw coming. So what pushed this HOA board member to cross the line? And how did the community fight back in a way that changed everything? Stick around, because this story's just getting started. To understand how things got so out of hand, we have to back up a bit. The child, 8-year-old Lucas, had recently been diagnosed with severe anxiety. His golden retriever, Max, wasn't just a pet. He was a registered therapy dog, trained to help Lucas stay calm during panic attacks and daily stress. Their bond was unbreakable. Max's toys, scattered throughout the backyard, were part of his training routine and a big source of comfort for Lucas. Most neighbors understood that, but not Karen. Karen, who had recently taken a seat on the HOA board, had a reputation. She was known for nitpicking lawns, sending warning letters for trash cans left out too long, and snapping photos of minor violations. But no one expected her to target a child. It started small, notes taped to the family's door about yard clutter and dog disturbance. Then, without warning, she entered the yard when the family was away and trashed every single one of Max's toys. Not one was left. When Lucas came home and saw everything gone, he broke down. His parents were furious, but it wasn't just them. Word spread fast, through neighborhood chats, community Facebook groups, and even Ring camera footage. People were shocked, but no one knew yet just how far Karen would go, or how ready the neighborhood was to push back. The day after the toys disappeared, Lucas refused to go outside. Max seemed confused too, pacing the yard where his familiar training tools once were. His parents tried to calm things down, but the emotional toll was clear. Meanwhile, Karen doubled down. She claimed the toys were unsightly and against HOA policy, though no one could find any rule about therapy dog equipment in private yards. Neighbors started asking questions, some quietly at first, others more boldly. One resident, Maria, who had lived on the same street for over 15 years, decided enough was enough. She organized a small neighborhood meeting in her driveway. Parents, dog owners, even a few teens showed up. They weren't just upset about the dog toys. They were frustrated with the way Karen had been policing the entire block. People began sharing their own stories. Someone had gotten fined for having holiday lights up too long. Another was warned for a garden gnome. It was clear this wasn't just about Lucas and Max. Karen's behavior had affected nearly everyone. Then came the footage, security camera clips from across the street. It showed Karen, late in the evening, stepping into Lucas's yard with a trash bag in hand. The evidence was undeniable, but instead of backing down, she became more aggressive. More notices, more threats, and soon someone decided to take things to the next level. As the community tension boiled, Karen showed no signs of slowing down. She filed a formal complaint with the HOA board, claiming Lucas's dog was a health hazard and a disruption to neighborhood standards. That was the final straw for many. Families began organizing more seriously, sharing documents, old HOA meeting minutes, and policies that contradicted everything Karen was pushing. Still, she kept going, acting like she was untouchable. But behind the scenes, the neighborhood was quietly building a case. One neighbor, Thomas, who worked in local law enforcement, took special interest. He reviewed the footage and began documenting everything: dates, times, photos, and testimonies. He wasn't acting in an official role, but he knew where the legal line was, and from what he saw, Karen might have crossed it. Trespassing, harassment, targeting a child's medically approved therapy support. It wasn't just petty anymore. It was potentially criminal. Meanwhile, Lucas's parents filed a report, and suddenly, officers were asking questions. Karen noticed. She started accusing others of harassment, claiming she was being unfairly targeted for just doing her job. She printed flyers about neighborhood integrity and left them on doors, but no one was buying it anymore. Then came the community vote, an emergency HOA meeting, packed with angry residents. Tensions were sky high, and just when it seemed it couldn't go any further, something happened that turned the entire story on its head. The emergency HOA meeting was supposed to be the moment the community finally stood up to Karen, but no one expected what came next. Just as the meeting began, a letter was handed out to all attendees. It was from a former board member who had quietly moved out a year earlier. The letter claimed Karen had manipulated HOA rules for personal gain before, including voting on changes that benefited properties tied to her relatives, something strictly against policy. Suddenly, this wasn't just about a therapy dog. This was a deeper pattern of abuse of power. The room buzzed with whispers and shock. Even those who had stayed neutral were now questioning everything. Karen tried to defend herself, saying the letter was fake, a smear campaign. But another resident stood up and confirmed some of the details from old emails she still had saved. The crowd started to shift. What began as frustration turned into outrage. And then, just as tensions reached a boiling point, 2 officers showed up. Quietly, calmly, they asked to speak with Karen outside. No handcuffs, no big scene, just a serious conversation by the patrol car. Inside, everyone froze. Was this about the trespassing, the therapy dog, or something else no one knew about yet? The room was silent, the stakes higher than ever, and no one knew what was about to happen next. The officers spoke with Karen for nearly 20 minutes outside, while the neighborhood sat in tense silence. Some peeked through the windows, others whispered theories. Was she being arrested? Was she going to walk back in and act like nothing happened? But when the officers finally returned, they didn't come alone. Karen followed, her expression stiff. One of the officers stepped forward and calmly announced that an official investigation had been opened, based on complaints of harassment, trespassing, and property destruction. It wasn't an arrest, but it was serious enough. Karen was asked to step down from the HOA board immediately, pending further legal review. That room erupted in a mix of shock, relief, and quiet applause. Lucas's parents embraced, overwhelmed with emotion. Some neighbors cried. Others stood stunned that it had all actually happened. But just when everyone thought the story was wrapping up, one final twist dropped. Quiet, subtle, but powerful. The former board member who had sent the letter stood at the edge of the room. She'd been watching the whole time from the back. Turns out, she hadn't just sent the letter. She had recorded her own meeting with Karen months earlier, where Karen admitted she didn't care about the child's needs and was just trying to make the yard look less messy. That recording was now in the hands of the investigators. The room fell silent again, but this time, not from fear. This time, it was the weight of justice finally catching up. In the weeks that followed, everything started to shift. Karen officially resigned from the HOA, and the board voted in new leadership. People the neighborhood actually trusted. The investigation into her actions moved forward, and though no one celebrated her downfall, there was a shared sense of peace that justice was finally being served. Lucas slowly returned to his backyard, and with Max by his side, he started to smile again. The community, once divided by fear and silence, had come together to protect one of their own. Neighbors who had barely spoken before now stopped to chat, helped one another with yard work, and even organized a small block party to celebrate new beginnings. It wasn't just about HOA drama or a therapy dog. It was about standing up for kindness, for fairness, and for a child who just needed his safe space. Max got new toys, donated by families from around the block, and Lucas helped hand them out to other kids with therapy animals in nearby communities. At the heart of it all was a simple truth. Neighborhoods aren't just about houses or rules, they're about people. And when people come together, even the loudest voices of control can't drown out what's right.